Welcome, everyone, to Kaifoon's Cove. I am the great, the massive, and of course the spectacular Kaifoon, and today I bring you the first of what I hope will be many, well, I like to call them retrospectives. Take a look back with me at my experience with a particular game, an examination of the game's story, and a speculation of what may be to come from these respective works of art. In today's game, The Last of Us, is regarded as a masterpiece by most, and with a sequel right around the corner, what better time to take a look at the game that started it all. Now, to be completely upfront and get this out of the way, this video will not contain any spoilers from The Last of Us 2 leaks. I personally did check them out myself, however, I will not be displaying those leaked images or videos. I will not be covering those story points. I will be making a separate video covering my feelings on The Last of Us 2 leaks, as well as my feelings on some people's reactions to the leaks. So if you would find yourself interested in something like that, please feel free to subscribe and hit that little bell there. And when that video drops, you'll be notified. Before all that, however, I would like to share my thoughts on The Last of Us, its story and characters, as well as my thoughts on stories and video games, and if we really should fear knowing about something before we really have a chance to experience it firsthand. Lastly, I will be spoiling the entirety of the first game's story, so be forewarned. If you haven't played The Last of Us, if you haven't beaten the game, maybe take a second, pause the video, go do that. Now, if you are ready to join me, ease yourself down, and prepare to weather my retrospective of The Last of Us. I will never forget the first time I saw the beginning of this game. Holy shit, what an emotional roller coaster. I love video games, period, that's it. As far as I'm concerned, there may be no better way to experience a story than through that magical feeling video games offer. From The Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Super Mario Bros., to Halo, Final Fantasy, and God of War, and everything in between, really. Video games have given me some of my most cherished memories, and for that, I truly thank and respect everyone who works so damn hard to make these wonderful experiences a reality. No other game I've played, however, quite prepared me for the experience The Last of Us offered. My girlfriend at the time had gotten The Last of Us as a gift for her PS3. At the time, I had a 360, and even though I liked many Sony games, and had a PlayStation 2, I just didn't get around to getting a PS3 of my own. On top of that, survival horror style games have never really been my forte. They just didn't call to me. Anyway, she put the game in, and exactly one eternity later, there it was, the menu. What an absolute beautiful thing, in my opinion. The Last of Us menu is just so simple and clean. I know that's not a big thing, but I hope they don't change that. Anyway, she started the game, and the story began to unfold. Everything I had experienced, and I simply wasn't quite ready or prepared for the raw intensity The Last of Us exuded. All these years, and one PlayStation 4 later, and I finally had the chance to play the game for myself. And even though I watched most of the game played before me, everything felt new, fresh in a way. It didn't matter that I was familiar with the story, or I was still enthralled by the majesty of what Naughty Dog had created. The story opens with you, the player, assuming control of a young girl named Sarah, searching your house late at night for your father, Joel. Already, from the opening cutscene, the dialogue between these two characters alone gives you a sense of just what kind of experience Naughty Dog wanted to make. One that feels real, familiar, grounded. And again, the dialogue between these two just gives you a sense of how much they love and care for each other. As you begin playing as Sarah, you notice just how weighty everything feels in the game, especially walking backwards. Not every game needs this as a feature, but damn if it doesn't help sell this experience with this game. As you find your father, things really take a dramatic turn. Your neighbor breaks in to your house and attacks. The game will refer to these people later as being infected by the cordyceps. Now, Joel, your father, defends you and kills your neighbor. You are joined by your Uncle Tommy, and the three of you flee. Unfortunately, that doesn't go so well. I swear, what is it with people and zombies that just make everyone go insane? Like slamming your car into gas pumps insane and shit. Anywho, after crashing their truck, and now in control of Joel, you carry an injured Sarah away from the infected, only to have to split up with Tommy as he holds them off. With Sarah, you run. And the infected give chase. With them biting at your heels, a lone soldier appears, and it seems like he saves the day. But that doesn't last long. After overhearing the radio call, And reading the soldier's body language, Joel understands that their savior is now their executioner. Too late, it would seem, as the soldier opens fire and Joel is hit as he turns to run with Sarah. Joel, falling to the ground, drops his daughter in the process. As the soldier approaches to finish Joel off, Joel pleads, begging for him to reconsider. Just then, at the last minute, bang! Tommy steps in with the headshot. Joel, still in shock, doesn't think to look to his little girl. And Tommy goes to help Joel up, and then it happens. We watch helplessly as Joel cradles his little girl in his arms, feeling Sarah's pain running through him. Joel's pleas to stay with him go unanswered, and we watch as the life drains from her eyes. Upon finishing the opening of The Last of Us, I'm convinced of two things. The first is that for Joel, Sarah meant everything. Something most parents, most family, can relate with. And second, this game pulls no punches. In my honest opinion, it's up front from the very beginning that this story is going to be as grounded in reality as possible. Not just in how it plays, but in also how it wants you, the player, to feel. Raw, true emotions, done to ensure you walk away from this game not just knowing what happened, but feeling what happened. After wiping the grown-sized man tears out of my eyes, I continued. We jump 20 years into the future, following a broken Joel as our game begins, as he deals with the life that he's made for himself in the 20 years since losing Sarah. And 20 years after a world he thought he knew has changed forever by the appearance of the cordyceps. And we find ourselves drawn into the middle of a war between what remains of society, living sequestered in sectors controlled by the Fedra, the last remaining remnants of the military, and the Fireflies, a resistance built around restoring the branches of government and reclaiming what we lost. Now, Joel finds himself on neither side of the conflict, simply doing his best to survive a broken world. Joined by your partner Tess, the two of you head out in search of a little revenge after someone named Robert has wronged you, stolen your guns, and as thugs attacked Tess. On your way, you're introduced to a world in which it's obvious that to survive, you need to be willing to fight. And fight you do. This game's combat aims to be as vicious and realistic as the rest of the game builds the world to be. Guns, knives, bricks, Molotovs, you name it, you got it. And plenty of options to deal with roadblocks in your way. And while you do have options in how you approach the game's given scenarios, it becomes very apparent that the way the game, hell, the way Joel, even the world, wants you to deal with them, is violence. Unfiltered, brutal, savage violence. After you and Tess finally make your way to the target of your wrath, you put a bullet in Robert's head for good measure. But it turns out he'd already sold your guns to a woman named Marlene, the leader of the Fireflies herself, a woman both Joel and Tess are familiar with. Now, arriving seconds after you killed Robert, Marlene needs your help, delivering a piece of precious cargo to her allies outside the city. That cargo is Ellie, a young woman, not much different in age to the daughter Joel lost. Now, begrudgingly, you accept. Not trusting Marlene, however, Tess decides to go make sure the guns are still actually around, giving you and Ellie plenty of time to bond, something that Joel is entirely resistant to. As Tess meets back up with you two, the trio begin to make their way out of the city, and it's then that things become spicy, so to speak. After dragging an ever-curious young woman around the non-quarantine zone, a very perilous landscape indeed, your group is accosted by two members of the Fedra. And while Joel and Tess scramble to figure out their next move, Ellie says fuck that and straight just shanks one of them in the knee. And Joel and Tess, after cleaning up the mess, then discover the big secret. Ellie was infected by the cordyceps, bitten on the arm weeks prior, but was immune. Now, despite his disbelief and resistance, Joel is convinced by Tess to continue the job, making their way to drop off the girl with her escort, waiting in the Capitol building. And despite the brutality they've exhibited so far, both Joel and Tess show a desire to be done with this life. After a few close calls with the infected, we arrive at what I would consider the defining quote of the game. After Ellie expresses her thanks for being accompanied by two such skilled guides, Joel responds with, "It's called luck." and it's gonna run out. Finally, revealing the truth The Last of Us has tried so hard to get you to realize. That it's not just our world that's become violent, broken, and without hope, but it's its people too. As our trio pushes on, pursued by the Fedra and avoiding countless more infected along the way, we come to our first instance of our luck running out, so to speak. Now, Tess is bitten, and after keeping it from Joel until they arrive at the Capitol building, it's revealed that there is no escort waiting. They're all dead. And Tess, revealing to Joel that she's been bitten, pleads with him to continue taking Ellie to the Fireflies. Even if he's unsure of where to go, she knows he can do it. She stays behind to hold off the nearing Federal troops, and Joel and Ellie slip out. Now, Joel, still beside himself because of Tessa's death, and the renewed trauma of being around a girl who reminds him so much of his deceased loved one, takes Ellie to make his way to find Bill, knowing that Bill might be their only chance of procuring a car. Now with a car, they can drive to Tommy, Joel's now estranged brother, and hopefully find some Fireflies. If any character was a perfect example of how in this world its people are as broken as the world itself, it's Bill. After making it to Bill's town and nearly being killed by Bill's damn bombs, meet the man himself. A heavy-set in his ways, paranoid doomsday survivor. The kind of man who doesn't like his piles touched and is obsessive about his rules. It's here that we arrive at another fantastic example of the truth of this world. Bill rightfully points out that Joel, of all people, should know why Bill fears humans far more than the infected in this world. Now, again, after making our way through more infected and finally getting to a working truck, we part ways with Bill, content, as he is, in the knowledge that him and Joel are now even. As our journey continues, in a way that feels, honestly, innocent, familiar to most of us, a road trip, we're actually then given another rude awakening. Under the guise of asking for help, a man approaches the duo. Joel, seemingly aware of the unseen threat, tells Ellie to buckle up. And even though he's quick, they still find themselves ambushed and hit by a trap. A damn weaponized bus. Joel and Ellie are able to survive, but now must make their way through a group of hunters. The hunters are portrayed as cutthroats, who wouldn't hesitate to kill you and loot your still warm corpse in search of weapons and food. We also learned some interesting facts about Joel here. It seems that the reason he was so well prepared for the ambush the hunters trapped them with is that he's been on both sides of these types of operations. And Joel, even if not, point blank, in some way reveals himself to Ellie that he isn't some innocent hero working for the good of humanity. Rather, a man lost in a deadly world, trying desperately to make up for the guilt he's feeling at letting Tess die and losing his daughter. And honestly, as Joel put it himself, you get people desperate enough, they'll do anything. Anything to survive. As things continue to escalate with the hunters and the infected, we're introduced to Ellie's mantra firsthand. Endure and survive. Taken from one of her favorite superheroes. Ellie so far has shown herself to be an incredibly smart, quick-witted, and tough young woman. And nothing makes this more clear than when things come to a head, literally. As Joel struggles to fight off one last hunter, it falls to Ellie to save him. And, one shot to the head later, she does just that, helping to solidify a budding bond between the unlikely pair. As the two fight their way out and make their way to Tommy's, it's becoming clear that Joel is starting to care about Ellie. Eventually, they meet up with another pair of survivors hiding from the hunters, Henry and Sam. Despite nearly killing each other, the four agree to work together. However, as is the case in this world, people are hard to trust, and despite some shaky moments, the group does manage to escape, but not before young Sam is bitten. And he chooses to hide it from the rest of the party, and what happens next acts as a catalyst, reminding you that no matter how safe you feel, no matter how things may seem normal, this world is harsh and unforgiving. Ellie, eager to awaken Sam for breakfast, enters the room where the boy slept, only to be attacked by an infected Sam. As Joel hurries to grab his weapon, he's stopped by Henry. Unwilling to let Ellie die, however, Joel reaches for his gun once more. Before he can do so, however, Henry ends Sam himself, shooting his younger brother. And after expressing his disdain for his failure to keep him safe, takes his own life as well. Left alone, once again, Joel and Ellie make their way to Tommy's once more. As fall arrives, so too do Joel and Ellie at Tommy's, and while the relationship between the brothers is definitely strained, it doesn't seem quite broken. Joel, convincing Tommy to help them find the Fireflies, heads out with Ellie on their new horse Callus to a nearby college. Unfortunately, while they hope to find Fireflies, in actuality, all they find are more hunters and, of course, more infected. As Joel and Ellie become increasingly worried they won't be able to find out where to search next, they do manage to find themselves a lead, but on the way out of the college, we once again have our luck run out. Joel falls and is impaled by a piece of rebar. Hurt and slowly blacking out, it falls to Ellie to save Joel's life once more. Now with winter falling, so too does the snow, and eventually, a deer to help feed Ellie and an injured Joel. As Ellie goes to collect their food, however, she is approached by two men, David and James. Distrusting at first and on guard, Ellie eventually makes a deal with David to exchange the deer for medicine for Joel, as well as a rifle for herself. As Ellie and David wait for James to return with the medicine, the pair is set upon by infected, and only after fighting their way to safety does David reveal that he is aware of whom Ellie is. Turns out that it was his men who Joel and Ellie killed back at the college in the fall, letting Ellie go only to follow her back to where Joel and her were staying in order to capture the pair. This forces Ellie's hand. After injecting Joel with the medicine, Ellie rides off on Callus, hoping to draw her pursuers away from Joel's location. While she makes a damn good effort, Ellie is eventually captured, taken by David to his camp, where they plan to serve her up as a main course, revealing the fact that they are indeed cannibals, and Ellie is on the menu. Not being one to take things lying down, Ellie kills James and runs from an enraged David, having just learned that Ellie may have infected him early when she bit him. After a terrifying game of cat and mouse, trying to escape David's compound, Ellie finds herself trapped, David slowly choking the life from her. It's at this moment that Joel rises up, alive and once again searching for Ellie, tearing his way through David's men, only to rescue Ellie from the man himself at the last minute. The two, once more reunited, make their way to what they hope will be the Fireflies' HQ. Spring is now when we find ourselves. Having arrived at our destination after all this time, things feel distinctly different between Joel and Ellie. Where before there was almost a denial of the feelings growing between them, we're starting to see that both have begun to accept the other not only as an equal, as a partner, but also as family. After an eternity of walking, killing, and nearly drowning, Joel is awakened in the custody of the Fireflies. Finally, they had made it. On top of that, Marlene was alive, and was thankful that Joel had kept his end of the deal, exclaiming that they had gotten to them in time to save Ellie from drowning, and that she was being prepped for surgery as they speak. Finally, we arrive at what must be the definitive character moment for Joel, for most people. After being told that indeed, Ellie, because she is immune to the cordyceps, will help the Fireflies synthesize a vaccine, but only by removing her brain, thus killing her, Joel, now the loving father figure, accepting this girl as his own, isn't going to take that lying down. Shooting, stabbing, and bricking his way through what seems like an army of Fireflies, he makes it to the operating room. And after freeing Ellie of her captivity, Joel carries her out of the facility, only to be met with Marlene, the last remaining person Ellie would have considered a friend in this world. As Marlene begs Joel to reconsider, even going so far as to say it's what Ellie would want, Joel weighs his options. Not willing to lose another daughter, however, Joel shoots Marlene, stowing Ellie in a nearby truck, and then returning to the bleeding woman. Begging for her life, Joel stops, before exclaiming, "You just come after her," and shooting Marlene in the head. It's here we arrive at our final scene. As Ellie and Joel make their way back to his brother Tommy's compound, Joel is asked by Ellie if everything happened the way he said it did with the Fireflies, unaware of what had actually transpired due to the drugs she was pumped with. Joel swears to it, and the game ends, with an unlikely pair of survivors becoming a family. Joel saving a daughter's life, and Ellie having the promise of no longer being alone in a cruel, cold world. In my honest opinion, this game is completely worthy of the masterpiece label it's been given. Especially for a type of game I never considered my cup of tea, The Last of Us was an incredibly fun and fulfilling experience, and a game I highly recommend experiencing for yourselves. Seeing characters like Joel, Tess, Ellie, Bill, and Marlene go through such harsh and violent experiences are propelled to a new level by wonderful voice acting, combined with a dedication by the developers to make these experiences feel as real and grounded as possible. What you are left with in the end is a game that hopes you enjoyed playing it, but even more so, seems to care that you shared this experience, this story, with its characters. And that is simply amazing. Watching Joel and Ellie journey from courier and cargo to unlikely allies before finally ending up as family is handled extremely well. At the end of The Last of Us, when rushing to save Ellie, and in some ways himself, Joel's journey actually reminds me a lot of Peter Quill in Guardians of the Galaxy. Both stories at times focusing on a main character who holds deep feelings of loss and regret, and despite the lives they've led up to this point, are both given a chance to remedy that feeling, that loss. In Joel's case, being losing his little girl. Saving Ellie for Joel is like Star-Lord taking his mother's hand at the end. An opportunity, I'm sure, that resonates with most of us. A chance to not make the same mistake again. Now, while I personally love Joel as a character, I have always wondered if viewing him as the hero in this game, in this story rather, is the right thing to do. Would the world we're playing in view him that way? He could easily be seen as the villain, putting the life of a young woman and his own desires to redeem his past perceived failings before a chance to save countless people from the cordyceps. A view, I'm sure, is not all that foreign from anyone who's played the game or is familiar with the story. Even though for many of us Joel's actions are justified, obviously, would those on the receiving end feel the same way? Marlene begs for Joel to see reason at the end, and her logic is, of course, that by killing Ellie, they could save so many lives. Even their humanity. And she wouldn't be alone in that assessment either. How many other people in the world of The Last of Us would happily trade Ellie's life if it meant ending the plant zombie apocalypse? In The Last of Us, there would be people who would see Joel as the bad guy and would want vengeance. People who would want Ellie dead, knowing it could save mankind even at the cost of their own humanity. Now, like many of you, I was bummed when The Last of Us 2 had its huge leak. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I won't share anything here. I'm going to have a separate video discussing those leaks. I just want to say that I'm still happily awaiting the sequel. Excited for what I'm sure will be an amazing experience brought to us by people who've had so much love and passion for their games and their fans. Considering what we hear about the working conditions at Naughty Dog, they must have passion and love to stick out that kind of environment just to bring us a video game. A video game they believe in. One they hope we will love. Despite the fact that I may have spoiled the game for myself, though, by looking at the leaks online, I still firmly believe the game will be worth playing. I feel this way because the developers honestly did put so much love and passion into making this game. I'm sure they put so much love and passion into making the second. And I want to reward that. I want to see what's to come, and I want to know, no matter the outcome, what happens next. I'm sure that that experience is going to be a worthwhile one. For many people, however, the fact that the story was spoiled will serve as a non-starter. They know all they need to know about this game, and that's it. For them, there's no reason to play it. While I would never say that a person should play this game or shouldn't, that's not my decision to make. You can choose to spend your own money on what you want. I will say that I do disagree with the assessment that the game is going to be bad. The idea that a game is merely a story, a few cutscenes and some bullet points, is a little degrading. Video games can be so much more. Like I said, I think video games offer us a chance to experience a story in a way other mediums just don't. The best example I have for this, an experience that reminds me so much of what's happening now actually, is a game I truly love to death, Halo Reach. I have loved Halo ever since the first time I saw the game being played at my friend's house. I was already a huge fan of video games at this point, but I just wasn't ready for that shooty bang bang goodness. I'll never forget selling the experience to my parents in hopes they would get us an Xbox of our own. They eventually did, and I spent many hours with Halo Combat Evolved. Then came Halo 2, and despite my mom's assurances that the game would be waiting for me when I got home from school that day, I still skipped school, went to a friend's house, and was wowed by the dual SMGs. A worthy sequel indeed, even if you had to deal with that cliffhanger ending. Now that, of course, brings us to finishing the fight with Halo 3, something most fans of the previous games remember fondly, definitely making up for the cliffhanger, and even giving us a side story introducing the beloved Buck in return for losing their energy shields in ODST. Now, we arrive at what I would consider the single best Halo game, Halo Reach. This game is responsible for some of our most cherished gaming memories, and I would consider it a true example of how to make a player feel like a part of the story. We felt like we were a part of the world, seeing our own personal Spartans doing all this kick-ass shit, making memories with these awesome characters, feeling like we left our mark on the Halo universe. A universe I was familiar with outside of the games too, though, reading the books such as Fall of Reach, First Strike, The Flood, to become even more engrossed in this universe I fell in love with. Now, my own experience with Halo Reach was never hindered in any way by the fact that I knew I wouldn't be victorious. The fact that I knew, the overall plot of the Battle of Reach. Despite knowing that Reach would fall, the experience of fighting beside George, Emile, and the other members of the Noble team was so entirely worth it. At the time, I heard so many of my friends say that, we knew where the story was going and that it was pointless. I couldn't believe it. Playing Halo Reach was completely justified by the experience the game offers you firsthand. I would say the same is true for The Last of Us, and by extension, The Last of Us 2 as well. That knowing isn't the same as experiencing. I'm still pumped for The Last of Us 2, and no amount of story leaks or prior knowledge of the game and its story will ever change that. I'm excited for the possibilities opened up by what we've seen of the new mechanics of the game. Being able to crawl under cars, combined with what I'm sure will be a more optimized combat system all around, to help The Last of Us 2 feel like not just an upgrade in the way the game looks or plays, but in the way the game honestly feels. The way the game tries to attempt reality and brutality in surviving in this world that requires even more complex gameplay from the second. I can't wait to see in what ways our characters will be able to outfit themselves. I'm personally hoping for more melee weapons. I see no reason why you couldn't pick up the shovels in the first game, just saying. I mean, even if you don't go the whole Dead Rising route, where you can just make crazy shit, I still think that there is a worthy experience that can be upgraded from the first game. That said, though, I just can't wait to get my hands on the sequel, and with any luck, bring some fun content surrounding that as well. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this time with me. I invite you all to share your own personal experiences. What do you think? Are you still excited for The Last of Us Part 2? Did you check out the leaks? Did you avoid them? Have you ever really enjoyed a game, or any story for that matter, despite knowing all about it beforehand? Let me know in the comments below, and regardless of how you feel about the leak or the upcoming game, you can easily admit that the developers at Naughty Dog worked hard to share a sure-to-be-worthy experience made with love and passion by people who have probably had their love and passion stretched to the breaking point. I wish all those developers that wanted their fans to have an unspoiled experience could get that back. But, and I mean this, I have nothing but respect and admiration for the amazing work the people at Naughty Dog produce, and look forward to another amazing experience with The Last of Us 2. I'm Kai-Foon, and while I'm just starting out, I hope to bring you even more fun and reflective content like this about other games, as well as other video game related content in the future. Thank you so much for listening. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment at your leisure. It's greatly appreciated. And with that, my conscious, I'll see you next time this Kai-Foon rolls into his cove. Later. Lots of love.